Bloodline was directed by Henry Jacobson and stars Seann William Scott as a high school guidance counselor. He meets with a lot of kids that have serious family issues, and when he hears their stories, he decides to go out in the night, find the people responsible for these issues, usually their parents, and kill them. A couple things made me want to watch this movie. Blumhouse, one of them. I like what they're doing right now. They're finding first-time directors, giving them a few $1,000,000 and just allowing them to be creative. And Seann William Scott in a horror movie. This I really wanted to see. I love whenever an actor primarily known for a certain genre tackles another. It always is very interesting to me. Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo, Jim Carrey and his string of dramas that he made. I love seeing an actor take on something like this, and I always am rooting for them because that's a big swing. And this movie takes a lot of big swings, the director especially. According to his IMDb, this is Henry Jacobson's first narrative feature. He had a TV documentary that he co-directed, and he takes a lot of risks here. This is by no means conventionally directed. And so this movie actually surprised me quite a bit, although it is flawed. This is by no means a perfect movie, and there are aspects of it that bothered me that I'll talk about. But I think Henry Jacobson definitely has something to say. He has a great eye. Movie looks great. Production design's amazing. Costuming, cinematography, musical score too, really strong. It's got a synth edge to it. Feels a little bit like something that might be in a Nicholas Winding Refn movie. That's not necessarily a problem. You might see some of those influences. But I think people nowadays talking about movies that haven't seen a lot of films from the 70s and 80s might focus on Refn primarily, whereas I think this was way more influenced by Argento or De Palma films. The killer wearing the skin-tight black gloves, the split-screen sequence that appears in this movie is very De Palma. He did that quite often. The influences are definitely out in the open if you are a fan of serial killer movies. And I like that the film tributes those things while not necessarily stealing from them, although it doesn't always feel as original as it could. But where the film really suffers is its middle portion. There's about 20 minutes that really drag, where we follow this guy as he commits various crimes. We're sort of on his side, which is weird because we know he's technically a murderer, but the people he's targeting are abusive to these high school kids. And so, yeah, he's a serial killer, but there's definitely a vigilante side to it as well. And at first, that's very interesting. But unfortunately, there isn't much variety to what he does. In fact, there's no variety to what he does. He does the same basic things with each victim. And so, after a while, you're waiting for something new to happen, and it doesn't come. The directing, however, stays strong, and the choices are surprising. So the script is at fault for this middle section that drags. It should have been a lot more interesting, and they should have found ways to make the kills more compelling if that's what they're going to go for. What does really work about this movie is the graphic, practical effects. There's one scene in particular that actually made me sit back, and that never happens to me. So that was surprising. But I've been holding off on talking about Seann William Scott for a reason. He blew me away in this movie. I would love to see him in more roles like this. I thought he was excellent. Gave a really nuanced performance, and a restrained performance that doesn't always let us in. I loved how once everything wraps up, this isn't a spoiler in my opinion, you're still a little unclear about him. You have ideas of his past, you understand some of his motivations, but as a character, he's very reserved. And the film kind of says, make up your mind about him. Love that. This is a far better performance out of him than I expected to see. And I've watched some interviews with him after seeing the movie and found out he's a giant horror buff. And so, guys, cast Seann William Scott in more shit like this. Like, he can do more than American Pie. This is cool. Also, if you want an underrated Seann William Scott movie, check out The Rundown with The Rock. Also, side note, I see your Paul Rudd doesn't age jokes, and I raise you a Seann William Scott. The guy hasn't aged in 20 years. So with his performance and the very clever direction and some actual surprises, this movie is better than I thought it would be. Although that middle portion is a big problem because the film doesn't go anywhere for a while. And 20 to 30 minutes of the same monotony, that's a big ask for a viewer. If you can get to the end, which I liked, but I know will be divisive. I think for the more seasoned horror fan, this movie has something to offer, and I'm excited to see what else Henry Jacobson directs in the future. I'm surprised that this film isn't being talked about that much. It's half the reason I made this video at all, because I expected more people to want to talk about this movie, because it's definitely different than your normal horror offering for many reasons, the casting of Seann William Scott being a big one. And I would like to see more people discussing the film. Like I said, by no means a perfect film. It is very flawed in some ways, but it's a big swing. And even though it doesn't always connect, I admire when a filmmaker tries for one. I'm going to give Bloodline a B. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. I have a humongous wave of Fantastic Fest reviews that are about to hit your subscription feed, so look forward to those, guys. Thank you. As always, you're the best. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.